please introduce yourself for the court?
Hi, I'm Rowan Patel.
And Ms. Patel, what do you do for a living?
I am, or I was, the challenge designer for the Saboteurs.
What did that job entail, Ms. Patel?
It was all about showbiz. Basically, the show depended on if I could think of something totally awesome for the contestants to do every week.
Is that all you ended up doing for the show?
No, I also was in charge of safety briefings and the welfare checks for the contestants before the challenges. I was a huge deal.
Well, you just mentioned you did welfare checks for the contestants. Did you get to know them pretty well?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Would you say you had a good idea of the relationships contestants had with each other?
Totally.
I'd like you to help add context to a specific relationship in the Saboteurs, that of Rob Armstrong and Charlie Martin. Can you do that for me?
Honestly, it was super strained. Charlie totally had it out for Rob. Every conversation I would have with Charlie would just end up with her going on and on and on about revenge.
Revenge? Ms. Patel, did the defendant ever tell you why she wanted revenge?
Oh my gosh, it was only the most iconic thing that ever happened on this show. Rob's betrayal of Charlie in season 2.
Well, I'd like you to help the jury have some context for that betrayal. Do you recognize an interview transcript from season 10?
Totally, that's the one with Indigo Quaid.
Sorry, my apologies. Now approaching the opposing counsel would have been pre-marked as Exhibit 25. May I approach the witness? Your Honor, would you like a courtesy copy? Ms. Patel, what did I just hand you?
This is that interview that Charlie did with Quaid.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of that interview?
Yeah, it is.
At this time, the state would like to move Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, to hearsay.
Response on those grounds, Your Honor?
You may.
Any statement in this document by Charlie Martin, the interviewee, is 801D2. It's party opponent. It's not hearsay. And because this is an interview, any statement by the interviewer, Indigo Quaid, is phrased as a question if not explicitly mentioned, and the confirmation and the assertions are only in Charlie's testimony in this document.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. It's our contention today, it's our understanding today that they're trying to argue that Charlie Martin had it out for Rob Armstrong, and some of the statements of Indigo Quaid in this interview are sort of going to that conclusion. For example, on lines 8 to Charlie Martin's goose being cooked in the context of season 2. And throughout this interview, Indigo Quaid is sort of suggesting that Charlie Martin and Rob Armstrong had a rivalry. So we'd like for the statements of Indigo Quaid to be redacted as they are hearsay and being used for the truth of the matter, Your Honor.
Response on those grounds?
You may.
Your Honor, because this is an interview, the statements by Indigo Quaid can be confirmed or denied by Charlie Martin, therefore making them questions even though not explicitly stated as such. There's no truth value.
Last response?
Yes, Your Honor. Regardless of Ms. Martin's attendance here today in court and whether or not she can confirm or deny these statements, by admitting these to the jury and letting them see them, they are using them for the truth of the matter asserted, which is Indigo Quaid's statements that Charlie Martin had it out for Rob Armstrong.
I'm going to sustain in part. I think a lot of what Indigo is saying is not questions. I'll allow Charlie Martin's statements in, but Indigo's have been strict on the record.
Yes, sir. Well, does Charlie mention this betrayal in this interview?
Yeah, in general, it was just pretty brutal.
Brutal, what do you mean by brutal?
Well, basically, Charlie and Rob were both saboteurs on season 2. And then, at the end, Rob sold out Charlie to the other contestants and, took the prize for himself.
And Ms. Patel, does Charlie mention in this interview how she reacted?
Charlie was really upset about it. That's why having both of them back on the All-Star season was such huge news to us.
Well, when was this interview conducted?
Season 10.
And from the defendant's statements in this interview, was the defendant still upset?
Absolutely. And from what I can tell, from things that happened on the season, Charlie went above and beyond to get that revenge.
Above and beyond.
Objection, Your Honor, to lack of foundation and Charlie Martin going above and beyond to get revenge on Rob Armstrong.
Response?
A lack of foundation objection is based in relevance, as her opinion of what happened is not relevant if she does not have the proper foundation. Therefore, Rule 104B actually allows us to conditionally admit this testimony on the grounds that that foundation be introduced later.
Skip 104B.
Yes, Your Honor. Pertains to relevance, which is the basis of lack of foundation.
Okay, I'm gonna overrule for now. If the proof is not introduced, feel free to re-raise your objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm going to re-ask the question. Does the defendant seem upset in this interview?
Absolutely. And from what I can tell, as I previously mentioned, Charlie did go above and beyond to get revenge.
Above and beyond, how so?
Well, as I was a challenge designer, I kind of knew a lot about the sabotages they performed. And like I said, Charlie was a saboteur yet again. But this time, on this season, her sabotages were a lot more unorthodox.
Well, I'd like to talk about one of those sabotages, but first, let's talk about that final challenge. Do you recognize a diagram of the land portion of that challenge as well as a still from the water section?
Absolutely.
Now, of course, the opposing counsel was then previously admitted as Exhibit 20 and was then pre-marked as Exhibit 22. May I approach on this? Well, let's start with the still. Ms. Patel, what is this?
This is the picture from the water portion that I designed. The contestants would have to dive and retrieve these colored rings on these anchors.
Well, is it a fair and accurate copy of that still?
Absolutely.
At this time, the state would like to move Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted.
Well, let's start with the land portion. Can you tell us what that diagram pertains to?
Well, I totally outdid myself with this challenge. Basically, the contestants would do this obstacle course and then follow this path to go to the water portion.
And you mentioned earlier the water portion. Can you tell us what's in the still? What do the divers have to do?
They had to come and retrieve these rings on these anchors, and they dove about 30 feet down.
Ms. Patel, was there anything inherently dangerous about this challenge?
Not at all. Honestly, I've designed much worse for these contestants to do. But even so, the #1 unspoken rule of challenge design is that you never mess with safety, especially when it comes to water.
Well, you just mentioned safety. Did you have any specific precautions for water?
Well, we did the safety briefings before the challenges, and then, also we had professional safety divers on standby in case anything crazy happened.
Well, did these precautions end up being effective?
No. Rob still drowned.
Ms. Patel, is there anything production could have done? Anything more production could have done?
We did everything we could under normal circumstances. The only thing that my team and I can't account for is what contestants do themselves. If they decide to go too far.
Well, I'd like to talk about how someone might have gone too far. What was the final sabotage?
Well, the final sabotage that was allowed was supposed to be adding 10 pounds to an already weighted backpack that had also 10 pounds. So with the sabotage, the maximum weight should have been 20 pounds.
And do you know who added these weights?
I have no idea. I checked the equipment at 5:30, and that's when I also checked the oxygen tanks doing my safety briefing or whatever, and it was just, afterwards, when I checked it again, Rob's backpack had 30 pounds, and that's not safe at all.
How many pounds did Charlie's backpack have?
Charlie's backpack, Charlie had no weights left in his backpack. He just had a few rocks in there.
Well, when you were checking the equipment after the challenge, did you notice anything strange about any of the other equipment?
Well, yes, like I said, also at 5:30 I was checking the oxygen tanks and they all had 30 minutes of air. And that should have been plenty for this pretty quick water portion. And then when I checked after the challenge was over, the rest of the contestants had plenty of air left. A lot of air. Except for Rob. He had absolutely no air left.
Well, I want to talk about how that might have happened. You mentioned earlier you saw the defendant buy the equipment at the beginning of the challenge. Did you see what they were doing?
It seemed like they were tampering with something, and since Charlie's a saboteur, I'm assuming they did sabotage.
Well, did you see anything specific that they put in Rob Armstrong's mask?
Charlie was adding some kind of powder into the mask.
Well, would you recognize a copy of a label for oxalic acid?
Yes.
Approaching opposing counsel who was pre-entered as Exhibit 13. Approaching my witness. You familiar with this document?
Yes, this is a label of oxalic acid.
And was that what you saw the defendant putting in the mask?
Well, I assume so. This acid was in the supply closet in the hotel.
Well,
Objection, Your Honor, to speculation.
Anyway,
The witness just stated that she assumed that the powder being put in Rob Armstrong's mask was oxalic acid, based on the fact that Charlie Martin had a powder and there happened to be oxalic acid in the Hotel Lux, but she is speculating as to what that powder in that mask was, Your Honor.
response?
also this grounds, Your Honor. One, there is no speculation here. The witness is not speculating to another person's state of mind. On top of that, the witness did conduct checks of the equipment after the challenge, and therefore would reasonably be able to know what acid was in that mask when she checked it.
Response?
Yes, I'd like to amend my objection on these grounds to lack of foundation, as no foundation has been laid as to how Ms. Patel would know what acid was in that mask.
Responsible.
Last one.
Your Honor, Ms. Patel checked the equipment, is a safety expert, well, not an expert, but is well-versed in safety, and therefore will be able to recognize the effects of an acid inside a diving mask which she had previously set up early in that morning.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Last one. Yeah.
Ms. Patel is not a safety expert. She was the challenge designer on the set of the Saboteurs, and she has laid no foundation to her being able to merely look at a powder and determine what its origin is, Your Honor. There's lack of foundation as to how she would possibly know what was in Rob Armstrong's mask.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Strike, Your Honor.
Censure.
We just talked about these weights, and we talked about the oxygen tank. When you said earlier you couldn't take account for a contestant taking it too far, is this what you meant by that?
Exactly what I meant. My job is the challenge itself, and like I said, it was completely safe under normal circumstances. The only thing I can't account for is if, like, a contestant poisons another contestant.
No further questions. Under my